With JapFest 2023 out of the way, it's finally time to get back to work and on the Mark II. And in today's episode, I'm making full custom water lines. Today I'm making full custom water lines, and here's why. I'm having some issues with the Skid Nation coolant reroute because the Skunk 2 inlet and throttle body sits slightly to the left and lower, and because there's an intercooler pipe here now, the Skid Nation reroute doesn't quite fit. And on the turbo side, we've obviously got a turbo and intercooler lines in the way, and you can't quite see it, but down here there is a G19 billet water pump outlet, which is a good few inches backwards where the original used to sit here. And originally there used to be a water line coming from this original outlet behind the original exhaust manifold to the heater matrix. And I don't particularly want to run a pipe from here behind the new turbo manifold. The amount of extra heat in this area, I just don't think the pipe is going to withstand it. So I'm going to have to figure out how to get the water from here, somehow keep it out of the way of the turbo and the screamer pipe, and get it back to the heater matrix. And a few other things along the way. I've got rid of the thermostat here, which used to have two water lines on it. The one on the left hand side used to lead to the oil warmer or oil cooler, whatever you want to call it. And then from the oil warmer, there used to be a pipe that ran to the back of the head. Now I haven't got any of that anymore, so I've just got to do a few final touches in regards to that. So I think I'm going to make a start on this side and come up with a plan to make this reroute kit more manageable. I've spent a lot of time off of camera planning this pipe, and what I think I'm going to do is actually hard pipe it all the way from here, 90 it down, straight, 90, and then along. And I think I'm actually going to hard pipe it past this strut tower. I'm quite worried because this coolant reroute has got to go a little bit lower because of the manifold. I really don't want it to chafe through on these strut supports. So if I make it a hard pipe all the way from the radiator and past these strut supports, I can make a bracket and hold that pipe out of the way. And then hopefully this pipe won't rub through anywhere because it will be hard pipe all the way to here. So to start things off, I'm going to have to cut this pipe. Well, there's no going back now. I've got myself a couple of 90-degree stainless bends. The first one is going to go straight onto the radiator here. I would have liked a little bit more length here to clamp the pipe onto, but even with this elbow almost buttered up, I am going to really struggle for room here. So I'm going to work out my length from this elbow to this elbow and get this section welded up. Ah, temporary workbench. Who would have guessed you'd be staying around for 3 years? One day, hopefully, you'll be replaced. But back onto topic. I've got my two elbows and my straight cut to length. Now it's time to get these cleaned up and tacked together. First couple of bends just tacked together for now, so it's time to dry fit it into the radiator and then work out my length from the two bends all the way to the Skid Nation reroute. Time to see how well this fits. I would say that fits pretty well, and that has neatened the whole thing up. So I'm pretty happy with how that fits. I guess it's time to fully weld it. The reroute pipe is back on my temporary workbench, and at the last minute I've decided to add 15mm onto the end where it meets into the radiator. I really wasn't confident that that silicone coupler was going to join on nicely to the elbow, so hopefully adding this 15mm on the end will cause that silicone coupler to make a good seal. So I've just tacked that on, and the whole pipe is now back purging with argon, in the hope to make a better and cleaner weld. So I'm going to let that back purge for a little bit and then fully weld it. With that all welded up, it's not quite finished. Because this is slightly thicker than aluminium intercooler piping, my bead roller won't quite work on the end. So I'm going to clean that end up and lay a nice bead of weld right around the edge to act as a bead rolled edge. Let's see how good that fits now. Even with the extra added 15mm here, I've still got plenty of space in between the intercooler pipe, and it's freed me up a lot of space here where I could put other things like the fuel regulator and the flex fuel sensor. Now all I've got to do is make a nice bracket to hold it onto the strut support, and that will go in there something like that, and I can mark the holes. So I could drill them, tap them, and then bolt them through this way. So then it sits a little like that. I'm really happy with how that bracket's come out, but because of all the different angles I've got going on over here, I'm going to drag the welder over and just put a couple of tacks on this bracket to the pipe. Then I know it's in the exact right place, and then I can take it off and fully weld it. That's the coolant pipe all welded up with the bracket and installed on the car. And with that bracket, it's not going anywhere. Loads of clearance everywhere, plenty of room for all the fuel pipes here, and it's looking pretty damn good. With the coolant reroute pipe all done, it's now time to move on to the side where it goes from the radiator to the water pump. This one's going to be a little bit more tricky. We've got power steering pump in the way, intercooler piping, and eventually some power steering lines. We'll get a little bit of a better look in the wheel arch. So we've got to go from the radiator here to the billet water outlet there. So I think I'm going to start with a little straight piece of pipe leading into a 45 to another straight bit of pipe to another 45 leading to the pump. Time to test fit that first piece. That goes straight on the radiator there, well out of the way of the intercooler piping. I've removed the power steering pump so we can see what's going on a little bit better, and I've repurposed the elbow from the Skid Nation reroute. I wanted this part of the pipe to have a little bit more flex in it to allow for the engine to rock, and then that not putting strain on this coolant pipe. So now I'm going to cut that down a little bit and then measure how far I've got to go. But that's looking like it should clear everything. I welded that in two parts, so I could put one part in the engine and the other part in the radiator. So then I could line them up and put a little Sharpie mark on here, so I know that's going to be welded in exactly the right place. And then I could take them back out and then weld them together. Quick test fit. That fits absolutely perfectly. So since I'm happy with that, it's time to pull it back out and fully weld it. With that all welded up and back on the car, it's now time to tee into this for the pipe that's going to lead to the heater matrix. And I'm going to use an AN10 weld-on bung, and I think I'm going to put it in this gap here between the anti-roll bar and the intercooler pipe. So I'm going to mark the placement of this bung on the pipe, take it back off, drill the hole and weld the bung to the pipe. After After drilling it, I attacked it with a die grinder so the AN10 bung will sit slightly off centre and nicely recessed. I've attached an old AN10 fitting to the AN10 bung just so it doesn't warp while it's being welded. So I'm going to clean this all up with some acetone and tack it together. Just one little tack for now. I want to make sure that's in the right place before I fully weld it. Ignore the fact that that's a 45-degree fitting. It's just a spare, but I'm really happy with the placement of that. It's not going to foul on anything, knock on anything, and plenty of room to play with. So now it's time to rip that off and fully weld it. With the lower rad pipe all bolted in, it's time to make the pipe that goes from the lower rad hose all the way to the heater matrix. Because I want to keep it as far away from the turbo as possible, I think I'm going to run it from the hose here, up over the wheel arch and tuck it right down there. Now this is going to cause a bit of an issue as it's going to sit quite high up here. It's pretty much going to be the highest part of the coolant system. Now this is going to cause an issue. It can cause an airlock right up here. Now to get past this issue, I've come up with an idea which I've stolen from a French car, and that is to add a bleed screw into the system at the highest point. But at the highest point, I'm going to put in an AN fitting with a 1/8 NPT bung. So please let me know in the comments down below whether you think this is a good idea, whether it will work or whether it won't work. I'll show you how that works in a minute once I've got all the pipes installed. So I've spent a bit of time making my AN10 lines, and it's just half installed for now. I didn't want to fully install it until I showed you guys what I've done here. It's an AN10 45 fitting to an AN10 to 5/8 barb and a 5/8 or 16mm 90-degree silicon bend. And this bend is going to go onto this first heater matrix fitting here, and it's going to tuck neatly underneath the catch can, something like that. So this is as far away as I could get it from the exhaust, tucked neatly underneath the catch can, away from the screamer pipe, up round in the wheel arch, and tucked under here is a couple of female AN10 fittings, and in the middle is a male to male AN10 fitting with a 1/8 NPT bung, which is not installed yet, it's still in the packet. This is in the hope that when I fill the system with coolant, I'll fill it via the radiator, and hopefully leaving that bung out, all the air in the system will be pushed up out of that bung, and when I see coolant coming out of there, I could put the bung in place, hopefully eliminating all airlocks in the system. So please let me know if you think that idea is going to work. I'm quite hopeful, but you guys might have a better solution for me. The two main things I want from this is to keep that pipe as far away from the exhaust as possible, and obviously keep my heater matrix. So all that's left to do is to secure this line in place. So I think I'm going to tuck this wiring up in the arch, secure this pipe to this threaded hole here, and make a nice bracket here to house our bleeding system. And I may have to put a little bit of heat protection on this 90-degree elbow, as this is the closest thing to the exhaust. That's the heater matrix line made and installed. I've just used a bit of stainless steel flat bar with a couple of P-clips to hold the bleed fitting still, and a P-clip attaching the hose to the arch. All the pipes are done up and tight, and I'm pretty happy with how that came out. I've still got loads of space here for an air filter, and it's as far away from the turbo as I could get it. So now onto the pipes that used to run to the oil warmer. Obviously this front one no longer exists, and the other one used to go to a hose right down the back of the block, somewhere just in there. You can just about see it just there. So because I'm not using the oil warmer anymore, that little pipe needs blocking off, and I'm just going to use a little end cap and a clamp to do that. Now the very last pipe I need to install, which isn't getting installed, is this one that goes from the block to the heater matrix, which looks a little something like this. Now all I can seem to find is these standard hoses. Now we all know this pipe in particular likes to burst, and for that reason I don't want to put a standard one on, and I don't want to fork out for a Stony Racing silicone hose kit, because the only hose I'm going to use is this one. So let me know in the comments down below where I could get just this single silicone pipe, or if you know of any better alternatives. And for this reason and this reason alone, I'm not going to be able to put coolant in the car today. And I'd also like to see whether you guys think my little bleed screw idea is a good idea. So that's all for this video. Don't forget to like, comment and share, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one.